Engineering company is setting records by hauling the heaviest load ever moved in Nevada. The nuclear reactor was decommissioned in Southern California. This load is almost 2.5 million pounds. Emert International hauled it to a disposal site near Salt Lake City. It arrived there this afternoon. Emert is one of the few companies in the world capable of a job like this, and it took a year to plan.
It is a challenge, and I'm just so fortunate that I've got such great people here in Clackamas, Oregon, and Dallas and Houston from our three offices that put this team together. And these guys have just worked their tails off to make this be accomplished.
Emert International was contacted to perform a feasibility study for moving the Unit Number 1 reactor pressure vessel, or RPV, from the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station in California to a decommissioning facility in Clive, Utah. The RPV unit operated from 1968 until 1992 when it was removed from service. The unit was placed inside a canister, grouted and sealed. Several route studies were executed by various parties that entailed trying to get the unit to the Savannah River site for decommissioning. Some of the efforts included towing the RPV through the Panama Canal and sailing the unit around the tip of South America. None of the route studies were deemed viable. Emert International started evaluating movement of the RPV cask utilizing a combination of rail and over-the-road methodology. A rail route to North Las Vegas was identified. As a result, a route study from North Las Vegas to Clive, Utah was necessary to determine the feasibility of an over-the-road route for the 1,470,000 pound piece. Emert International contacted the State of Nevada Department of Transportation 2 years before the movement of the RPV cask occurred to identify potential routing. The proposed transporter consisted of the following overall dimensions and weight: 306 feet 6 inches long by 20 feet 8 inches wide by 22 feet 10.5 inches high. The gross weight of the transport system was 2,367,744 pounds. 3 prime movers were utilized at the front of the load and 4 additional prime movers used at the rear. The tractive effort from the prime movers was augmented by using Goldhofer add-drive trailers, which engaged additional planetary trailer drives when speeds were reduced to 20 miles per hour. Emert generated a route study that spanned 400 miles and consisted of satellite imagery with latitude and longitude coordinates to identify all culverts, bridges, overhead power lines, traffic relief areas, and civil improvement areas. 12 culverts along the route were deemed as structurally inadequate for the 2,367,744 pound transport system by the Nevada DOT. To complicate matters further, some of the structural drawings for the original culverts dated as far back as the 1930s. To establish the baseline for the structural integrity of the culverts, Emert International performed hand calculations predicted by AASHTO and concrete standards. In addition, Emert International also provided a RISA analysis as a backup to our calculations. Emert International engineered and designed a hydraulic jacking system that would be used to support the culvert spans from inside the culverts. A steel column was fabricated that would support the hydraulic jack. On top of the hydraulic jack, steel beams were positioned that would provide additional support under the culvert span. In some cases, the culverts had multiple spans, so additional hydraulic jack systems were placed inside of each span. 2 jacking and shoring crews moved ahead of the load and set up shoring systems as the load transitioned over each of the culverts. In March of 2020, to start the transport process, Emert International mobilized the crew and equipment to the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station, or SONGS facility, where the RPV cask was stored on site. The mobilization coincided with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, the Emert crews were required to wear masks and practice 6-foot distancing whenever possible. During the daily safety meetings, all tasks that required personnel to work within close proximity of each other were identified and evaluated to minimize exposure. Emert crews worked through each step based on a detailed work package generated over the course of 2 years, consisting of step-by-step methodology write-ups, calculations, and stamped drawings. If any deviations from the final work package were required, a new set of drawings with corresponding calculations, customer review, and stamped drawings were resubmitted to the client for their approval. Emert's site personnel and engineering group were able to stay in front of the required field changes. The initial phase of the road transport included relocating the RPV cask from its existing on-site location to a rail siding. After moving the RPV cask on-site, it was loaded onto a 36-axle Schnabel car and transported to North Las Vegas. Emert International utilized climbing jacks to lift the components off the rail car and then transition the RPV cask onto a Goldhofer 24-axle line double-wide platform trailer with Goldhofer add drive components to assist the prime movers when climbing hills. The RPV cask and transport skid measured 47 feet 7 1/4 inches long by 15 feet 5 1/2 inches wide by 19 feet 3 1/2 inches high. The Goldhofer platform trailer was 121 feet long. To further spread the weight of the RPV cask throughout the platform trailer, Emert International engineered and designed 4 RPV extension arms to provide an additional 30 feet of trailer deck coverage. The additional trailer deck coverage resulted in achieving proper ground loadings. A multitude of civil improvements were required along the route. Traffic relief areas, or pullouts, were identified every 20 to 30 miles. Where no pullout areas were available for the 306-foot-long transporter, civil improvements were made for traffic relief. A safety meeting was held every morning before the transport process started. Traffic relief, refueling stops, pullouts for emergency vehicles, and overnight parking locations were identified during each meeting. Police, pilot cars, and utility companies were all furnished with the published route survey that Emert generated. All cities and counties were advised of our transport schedule daily. Handheld radios were distributed to the state police, bucket trucks, and pilot cars to enable continuous communication as the transporter moved along the route. Over the 400-mile route, Emert International was able to move the 2,367,744-pound RPV cask from northern Las Vegas to the Clive site in 42 days. In sum, no accidents, injuries, or damage to equipment occurred, and the project was completed on time and within budget. Shipment and routing, dimensions and weight. 306 feet 6 inches long by 20 feet 8 inches wide by 22 feet 10 1/2 inches high. 2,367,744 pounds. Characteristics. The route transitioned from desert conditions to elevation climbs of 7,700 feet. A multitude of power lines were required to be raised along the route. Emert International negotiated 7% grades in several areas along the route. Majority of routing was on 2-lane roads that required rolling roadblocks to stop traffic. Weather, 110 degrees within the Nevada desert. Planning the job. Man hours involved, 6,720 hours. Regulatory approvals, permits, permit approvals from Nevada State DOT and Utah State DOT. Notification 12 months in advance and approval from 53 agencies. Heaviest load ever moved through the state of Nevada. Emert International designed, engineered, and constructed a portable shoring system to accommodate the 2,367,744-pound transport system as it transitioned across culverts that were identified by the Nevada DOT as structurally deficient. Building new facilities. Roadway was repaved at a railroad track crossing in order to level the area. After passing the tracks, Emert was required to remove the additional paving and restore the area to its original condition. Emmert used geotech fabric, gravel, and dirt to widen corners, construct pullouts, refueling and traffic relief areas, as well as overnight parking areas. COVID-19 protocol was implemented throughout the transport process. Masks were required to be worn by everyone associated with the move. 6 feet personnel distancing was enforced whenever possible. Safety considerations. Driver supervision. Lead truck driver required to have hazmat qualification. Radio contact to coordinate culvert crossings with on-site Nevada DOT representatives. All equipment used within factory specifications. Newly designed equipment evaluated with hand calculations and supported by RISA modeling. Precautionary measures. At all times during transportation, 5 state police cars, 3 front pilot cars, 1 with a height pole, and 3 rear escorts, 2 Nevada DOT representatives, and a nuclear radiological technician traveled with the load at all times in case of an accident. An armed guard watched the RPV cask when not in transit. Each night, all 454 tires, coolant, fluid levels, and hydraulic hoses were checked on the transport system. Reader boards utilized to advise the public of traffic delays. Nevada DOT 511 website updated public daily. Daily safety meetings were held with police, Nevada DOT representatives, pilot cars, and bucket trucks from the various utility companies. Execution. Number of man-hours involved, 1,920 hours. Ingenuity. Custom-built RPV extension arms coupled with steel mats facilitated the distribution of weight across the Goldhofer platform trailer. Custom-built RPV extension arm pad eyes served as lifting points when loading the RPV cask. Innovation. Goldhofer add drives included to assist with climbing 7% grades throughout the hills of northern Nevada. Emmert International designed, engineered, and built a portable hydraulic shoring system to support the 2,367,744-pound RPV cask as it transitioned over the structurally deficient concrete culverts.